Welcome, welcome. I'm ecstatic to have you here because, in my own opinion, and believe you me, this is the first day of the rest of your life. If you're here trying to quit addiction, you are logged on to a solid program. If you're willing and you commit to all of the tools and the resources we would make available, I guarantee you, under God, you are adequately equipped with everything, no cap. You need to be able to break the shackles of addiction. Contrary to what most other programs will tell you to quit, tell you you can just put an end to it, you can just cut it off. Realistically, it's not that easy because addiction is more than a bad behavior. It's a literal rewiring of your brain. So this program would be exposing you to a solid and nuanced understanding of what has gone on in your brain, which is manifesting your life, and then how can you begin to build new pathways that will be able to sustain a more holistic life, one that builds a different trajectory, a trajectory of healing rather than a trajectory of addiction and trying to escape the pain. Addiction is always an attempt to soothe a psychological pain. If there was no pain, if the person is not trying to escape a discomforting sensation, chances addiction will not come to play. So it's a means of escape in most people. Now, if we're able to, by virtue of having gained resources, able to face life head on without needing to check out, then there will be no need for addiction. That is the fulcrum of this course. And then we will be adopting a four-pronged approach, a biopsychosocial spiritual approach. So biologically, what's happening at the brain level, at the neurochemical level, at your daily routine level, sleeping and other things. Psychologically, what are your thought patterns? What are your coping mechanisms? Sociologically, your surrounding, your network ultimately becomes your psychological net worth. And what are the resources you listen to? What are the things you expose yourself to, atmospheres you expose yourself to, and of course, spiritually. Human being is, we are spiritual being having a physical experience. At the core, we are spirits. And addiction at its root would also affect the human spirit. So you can't really heal without taking care of the root, which is the human spirit. So we'll come to that place of integrating psychology with the timeless scriptures of the truth of the scripture, and then with this knowledge and intentionality on your own part, you'll be able to leverage all that you need to come to that place of healing. So you're very welcome. I'm really, really happy that you're watching this, that you logged onto this course, and believe you me, you are set on that path that will change your life and then have a ripple effect for generations to come. I believe that there is a crop of people who will rise up in the future and say thank you for taking that bold, audacious step to express that willingness to take the bull by the horn, if I may say, that you would steward your healing and insist that you are recovered from the shackles of addiction, come what may. So I celebrate you, really. I celebrate you. I'm jubilant. I'm thankful you are here. And my heartfelt desire and prayer is that as the resources are made available, you will be graced and energized and motivated and passionate to be able to take those resources and run with them, such that on the other side, at the end of the 12-week program, you can say, yes, I made it and I'm a different person than the person who started this 3 months ago. So module 1 is understanding addiction. The truth is the first step towards freedom is understanding. If you're going to enter a battle and you would be able to win, you must have a firm and solid understanding of who your enemy is. You don't just enter enemy territory without understanding what is going on. So this module would break down all of the big jargon words you may have heard in the medical field around addiction, things you may have read, or even things you're experiencing that you don't have language for. So we'll give you words for it, and all of a sudden the whole thing will begin to make sense. So we would, in this module, define addiction. It would also help you recognize different types of addiction. But you sitting with this, you may find that, oh, it's not just weed, I have an addiction to some other things. So there's substance addiction, there's behavioral addiction, as you'll come to see later. Then you would also understand how addiction develops. It's a slow fade. Nobody wakes up and all of a sudden they're addicted. It's a slow fade. It's a gradual progression. Then you also want to now be able to identify signs of addiction in yourself. Maybe you're someone who is just perusing this video or this course wherever you're watching it from, maybe YouTube, maybe any of our social media platform, and you're wondering, does it really apply to me? At least you have a number of checklist questions, if I may call them, that would allow you to self-diagnose, so to say, if you are someone who is on that timeline for addiction. Then you would also understand the addiction cycle, and from this place of understanding, you begin to start replacing shame with understanding. So it's not you blaming yourself, being burdened and saddled by guilt. It doesn't get anybody anywhere. The understanding should harm you with a passion and a decision and a desire to say, come what may, I'm getting out of this cycle. So you're welcome again. Awareness is the doorway to transformation. So please, let's lay hold of this awareness and steward our way out of the shackle of addiction. So what is addiction? Addiction is, I tell you what it is, then we say what it is not. It's a chronic condition that affects the brain. So first is it affects the brain, and then will affect behaviors, emotions, and then relationships. By the time the individual is struggling to make ends meet, struggling to hold down a job, that is maybe 4 steps down the line. The addictive behavior or the substance of addiction has literally rewired this individual's brain. So it's a pattern of compulsive behavior despite harmful consequences. You've promised everybody you will not do it. You've seen that it's damaging relationships, your finances are on the line, your grades are suffering, and you still cannot stop it. That's a compulsive behavior, almost like the word addiction is like slavery. Like it puts a hook, it has captured the individual. And it's more than a lack of willpower. Most people, maybe most people struggle with addiction in their heart of heart. They want to quit. They want to get out of the cycle. So if it was by will, they really wanted to. But this is beyond being strong-willed. The brain has literally been rewired, and most decisions that we make is at the brain level. So, and it's often an attempt to cope with deeper emotional pain. In all my years of doing trauma and addiction therapy, I'm yet to find someone who struggles with substance use disorder or behaviors of addiction and does not have some deep-seated traumatic experiences. There's always deep-seated psychological pain that they are using these behaviors to mask or to override. So it's an attempt to cope with a deeper psychological pain. Now, viewing it from this lens, all of a sudden, you begin to extend understanding and compassion to yourself. Compassion not so that you can continue in that cycle, but compassion now because you're seeing you know how you got here, and understanding how you got here, you should then be able to develop that willingness to say, no, this far and no further. Now we're getting out of here from the place of compassion, not from the place of shame. Now, addiction is not a sign of weakness. By the time we get to addiction, weakness is no longer a conversation. Brain pathway that has been altered is the conversation at this point. Deep psychological pain that is being masked is the conversation at this point. It's more than a moral failure. Because like I told you, most addicts really want to get out, but they don't know how to get out. So quit calling yourself as that person who does not want to be helped. And society would also do well to stop labeling them. These are people that need help, that need tutelage, that need support, that need guidance. It's more than a simple bad behavior. This is a neuronal wiring for the worse. And the brain has to be rewired again for the best, for the positive, for us to see what is possible on the other side of addiction. And now, if you're someone who struggles with addiction, you're listening to me, please keep this truth in mind. With addiction, you lost freedom. You do not lose value. I usually teach identity recovery course once a while. And if you are a person of faith, because I'm of the Christian denomination, and the good book says that man is created in the image and in the likeness of God. So I ask you, in whose image are you created? You tell me God. So I ask you, is anything wrong with God? You say no. So can anything be wrong with you? No. So your inherent value remains. However, the way you may be stewarding your life may be wrong, which is why we're having this conversation. So you cannot lose value on the premise of what you're struggling with. The way you're stewarding life needs to be adjusted, needs to be upgraded, needs to be altered in a lot of places. But inherently, your value is not tied to what you do or what you do not do. It's tied to who created you in his image and likeness. So please have this truth settled for a fact. Let it settle from the depth of your being, because it's when you even own your sense of worth, your sense of identity, and you place good value on yourself, that you will be driven and passionate to steward your recovery journey. It is then you'll be able to tell yourself, hey, no, I am worth better than this. I deserve better. I deserve a better life. Regardless of how bad I struggle with addiction, I have what it takes to come out of the shackles. That's the kind of mindset you want. So with addiction, you may have lost freedom in some areas of life, but you've not lost value. You've not lost worth. You've not lost identity. Please keep this truth in mind. So for addiction, we have two major types. So it could be behavioral or it could be related to substances. Either way, they are all powerful and hard to control by the time somebody is addicted. Because this, either the substances or the behavior, the substances can directly affect the brain chemistry and the reward pathway. Any activity or behavior or substance we can consume or involve in and create pleasure, if it's not well stewarded, can latch onto the addiction pathway and put even the best of persons at risk of developing an addictive disorder. So you mentioned alcohol, you mentioned tobacco, you mentioned cannabis, cocaine, opioids, prescription medications like pentazocine, like codeine, like tramadol, sedatives like diazepam, inhalants, a number of inhalants and gases, stimulants, methamphetamines, and the likes. All of these substances can, people can develop addiction to them. But it doesn't end with substances only. It also could be to behaviors. The people who are addicted to pornography, there are those who are addicted to social media, there are those who are addicted to gambling, Baba Ijebu, Niger bets. There are those who are addicted to gaming. Gaming addiction is a real deal. Candy Crush addiction is not unusual. Then food addiction is a reality, which is why some people can eat their way and then struggle with other sequelae of overeating, obesity, dyslipidemia. That's when the cholesterol is all over the place, putting the person at risk of hypertension and diabetes. Now, why am I saying food addiction? Someone could say, okay, I don't take alcohol, I don't smoke weed, I just take 5 liters bowl of ice cream when I am not in a good mood. That may not be addiction yet, but that's on the pathway. So that could be dependence. That could be unhealthy coping. So any behavior, any substance that can give us pleasure can, if it's not well stewarded, be looped on a pathway for addiction if we use it as a means of coping with negative emotional or psychological state. Nothing should be used as a means of coping. It should be that we face them head on, having developed healthy coping mechanisms. You're not happy, sit with the sadness, experience it, process it, make new meanings out of them, and then move on. You're scared, face the fear. You can't keep running the entirety of your life. You can't keep escaping. At some point, you have to pause and face the psychological pain. Deal with what can be dealt with. Seek therapy for those you need therapy with. Journal your way out of some. meditate to find clarity for some, and some you just bury them and let them be, especially for things you cannot undo. So behavioral addiction could also be to shopping. Yours truly once struggled with shopping addiction at a point. Someone would then say it's those who have money that struggle with shopping addiction. No, it doesn't have to be those who have money. These are people, addiction just means you buy things to escape a negative emotional state. You're not happy, you order that thing online, and then you feel happy because some reward chemicals has been pumped into your brain. You're not happy, then you order that shoe because it makes you happy. And then you find that for every negative state or emotional state you have, you're looking for the next buy to be able to feel happy. Sometimes you're not even buying something of a good quality. You're not buying for the use, you're buying for the pleasure. And then work addiction is a respectable addiction, but is a reality. Any kind of addiction, people suffer. In work addiction, you can already guess those that will suffer. The individual's physical health will suffer. If he's a married person, the marriage will suffer. The children will suffer. This is not me saying people should not be diligent. This is when people use work as a means of escape from internal discomfort and internal unrest. So rather than face issues, they don't know when to put work to an end. Even when they're given a vacation, they still go to vacation with work. And then this is not, these same people, if they had nothing doing, they don't know what else to do with themselves. It should be that you have a period or a moment or a period of solitude, however long, however short, you can enjoy your own company without needing to check out into work. It's a point for sober reflection. Then compulsive sexual behavior is also another kind of behavioral addiction. There's exercise addiction. I think there was a YouTube video of a woman who exercised so much that she became really thin. Because exercise, again, is an activity that would make us feel good, so could release dopamine, particularly endocannabinoids, and a number of other wonderful feel-good chemicals into our brain. Now, if this exercise latches onto the pathway of addiction, you then find someone with exercise addiction. As strange, as unusual as it sounds, it's a reality. Then there are those who take pleasure in harming themselves. So they cut themselves. We call them non-suicidal self-injury. It's a psychiatric condition, actually. But many times, such people would carry out these activities in a bid to let out psychological pain. So whether it's a behavior or a substance, they all can activate the brain's reward pathway and become compulsive over time. And importantly, rather than dealing with pain, people use it as a means of escape. So a key message I want you to keep in mind is that anything that controls you more than you control it deserves your attention. Be it a substance, be it a behavior. Now, addiction does not happen overnight. It's a slow fade. Nobody wakes up and tells themselves, in a month's time, I'll be addicted to so and so. Most people would go through the process of experimentation to occasional use and so a number of other series of steps before they get to addiction. Experimentation is the entry point for most people. It could be out of curiosity. So what does it feel like? How would it feel? Let's give it a trial. Could be out of peer pressure because your friend says, give it a try. Try it. I used it and I felt like this. I think you should give it a shot. And then it begins. And sometimes it's that people are just looking for excitement. You go for that party or you go for that event and you're wondering what will make this event more pleasurable, more exciting. Now, importantly is that at the experimentation stage, there are no obvious problem yet. You use it, your eyes is cleared, and then life continues. And many times people still say, no, I can quit whenever. I'm good. It's not a big deal. It's not problematic at this point yet. But the truth is, awareness would help us to begin to intervene early and change direction. There's no time that is too early or too late to get away from substances and behaviors of addiction. So for someone who is watching or listening to this and is still at the experimentation stage, this is the time to back off. Substances of abuse, behaviors of addiction are not things to play with. If food that is a necessity for life can become addicted for those who have a lot of psychological pain and they've not found an outlet for it, how much more substances that were crafted and curated with the intention of them being addicting? Then the person moves from the experimentation phase to occasional use. So use is recreational, and many times it looks like they're in control, just maybe on Saturdays, maybe on Sundays, maybe when they hang out with friends. Maybe that's just when it happens. And many times at this point, patients will tell me, I can stop when I want to. It's not a problem. It's not a problem. We don't need to talk about it. The time you feel you can stop is the best time to stop. And from occasional use, the individual goes to regular use, because by this time now it's beginning to rewire the brain. Your brain is now thinking, oh, we do this, we feel good. We do this, we're able to sleep. We do this, we feel excited. We do this, we feel confident. So the brain is able to learn first. And then it's beginning to associate, this is the behavior we do that helps us to get this positive feeling. Or this is the substance we take that helps us to get this positive feeling. Before you know, such an individual has migrated into regular use. Their use becomes more frequent. At this point, stress can begin to trigger a need to use, because now the brain is associating the use with a relief. Meanwhile, before, when they had a stress, they faced or confronted it head on. But now they don't face it, they escape it with the behavior or with the use. And at this point, tolerance may start developing. For every substance or behavior of addiction, if I use marijuana as an example, there was a time where the individual wrapped a blunt and took a few puffs and experienced the euphoric effect of marijuana. Now they finish a whole blunt before experiencing that level of euphoria. The brain is beginning to get tolerance to the previous dose, so the individual has to up the dose. This is when it becomes really, really scary, because the brain pathway is literally, structurally being rewired. Because tolerance would continue in incremental doses. Later, it will no longer be 1 wrap. It will be 2 wrap before you experience that level of euphoria. And if it's sex, it gets riskier. Now, people want to do 2 sums, they want to do 3 sums, they want to do bi, and a number of other things. And the next phase is problematic use. Consequences begin to appear. Relationships begin to suffer. Health and finances are affected. You find that you now need to borrow money, or you're buying it on credit. Your academics is suffering. You're not regular at work. You're not as responsible, as reliable as you used to be. And then guilt begins to develop. After every use, you feel guilty. You feel bad. You tell yourself the worst kind of stories. And at this point, you're promising to stop, but you find that you're still struggling. Then by the time an individual gets to dependence, the body and the brain begins expecting it. In fact, every attempt to say they will not use leaves them with very discomforting withdrawal. They can't focus, they are irritable, they're angry, they're agitated, they cannot eat, they cannot sleep. At this point, this is dependence. Their life literally begins to revolve around the behavior or the substance of addiction. And then by the time an individual gets to the compulsive phase, there's loss of control. At this point, it's not them controlling the behavior or the substance. It is the behavior and the substance controlling them now. They spend every waking moment thinking of how to use or how to do whatever addiction they struggle with. And despite severe consequences, they still continue. So that will be in that individual with sex-related addiction who has masturbated so much that the penile shaft is bruised and bleeding and still continues. I'm sorry to give such a graphic image, but those are realities. And that will be that person who is in debt now, and police are looking for the person and will still spend the last dime to buy a wrap of wheat. And that will be that person whose marriage has literally scattered and then still continues every single day to visit a brothel. And that will be that person who is neck deep in debt and is still online shopping for the next shoe, even though they have a whole wardrobe of shoes and they don't know where to keep the next one. So at this point, the addiction, the behavior, the substance controls the individual's choices and life. Now, why is it important to understand that addiction is a slow fade? Nobody begins and hopes to get to the compulsive state. Usually begins as experimentation. So if you're watching me, you're listening to me, you're still contemplating, do I want to stop? Do I not want to stop? Wherever you are on this trajectory, please love your future more than your present. Please love your future more than a need to escape the discomfort of now. Take that bold, audacious step to say you're breaking this cycle. You're looking for help. You're seeking therapy. You're finding an accountability partner. You're seeking a group, a recovery group, and as many options you want to as possible. The truth is that the earlier you recognize the signs, the easier it is to stop the progression and start the journey towards freedom. So somebody they asked me that, how do I know if I'm struggling? Here are a number of questions that could be like a self-reflection for you to, would I say, class yourself into any of the spectrums, and without awareness, take the bold step to reach out for help. Have you tried stopping the behavior or the substance and you could not? Do you hide your behavior from people, or do you underestimate it? Do you tell them, oh, it's not so bad? No, I just took a puff. Meanwhile, you finish 2 wraps. Do you feel guilty afterwards, whether it's a behavior or a substance? You do the act and then you come back feeling very guilty. Has it affected your health in any way? With sex-related addiction, somebody now has HIV, or alcoholism, the liver function test is not too wonderful again. Has it affected your health in any way? You know, this was the behavior responsible for this health complication. Has it affected your relationship? So you are now at loggerheads with your parents, with your siblings, because everybody is calling you out, trying to tell you that this is not the best way, and then you pick offense and you block them. Or is your marriage on the line because you just cannot call it quits with pornography? Has it affected your finances? Are you now boring to be able to sustain the behavior? Or you're buying on credit and you're now trying to run away or hide from your dealers? Do you find yourself craving it? You sit and you're thinking about it, you're having goosebumps, your heart is racing, and you're imagining and fantasizing about the behavior or the substance. Do you find that you continue despite negative consequences? So now, if you find that you answer yes to more than one of this, it's an alarm bell that should allude to a possibility of being on the trajectory. Now, understanding this, it's not to judge you, it's just to come to that place of awareness, because honesty is a necessity on this journey of recovery. You can't lie to yourself. Even if you lie to any other person, you can't lie to yourself. So now we talk about the addiction cycle. Addiction many times goes in a cycle. There's always a trigger that leads to a use and leads to guilt, leads to more emotional pain, and then the cycle continues. While I said that all substance and behavior of addiction is an attempt to soothe some deep psychological pain, the cycle of addiction leads to re-traumatization, leads to more pain, leads to more pain. So if you look at it like physical wound like psychological pain, physical wound, the individual has the option of taking that pain to the doctor, having taken that wound to the doctor, having it explored. Exploration of any wound is painful. If it's suturing, it's also painful. Then you take medication and the wound is healed and you're good. For someone who says, no, I'm not taking care of this wound, I cannot afford it. I don't want to touch the pain. Exploring is going to be painful. I don't want to go through that route. And says, what do? I just put a band-aid on it. The one we call bandage here in Nigeria. So you put a band-aid on it, what happens? The pain gets worse. The wound gets worse, gets infected, begins to smell, begins to ooze. If it's so bad, it could put the limb in jeopardy, at risk of amputation. What happened? It started as a psychological pain that could have been resolved. But the individual decides to mask it with addictive behavioral substances, which puts the individual at risk of more emotional pain, and the cycle continues and continues and continues. And the truth is, many people would continue to perpetuate an addiction cycle until they change something. So you want to break off something, or you want to intercept this cycle. Are you intercepting it at the point of you saying, we will deal with the pain? We would not run away from it. Are you intercepting it at the point of which you say, I am not masking this pain. I am coming out and seeking help. The first step in every addiction cycle is a trigger. Something happens that will activate the cycle. So it could be an emotional discomfort. You're hungry, you're stressed, you're tired, you just feel, I don't have energy, I don't have passion, I don't feel like doing anything. I just want to smoke and stay in the house. Now, because this individual has over time learned that this is what we do to feel good. You go to step 3, at which point there's craving. The brain begins to seek relief because it says, oh, this is the thing we did the last time that worked. The last time we were not motivated, we took a puff and then we felt motivated, we could go to the gym. The last time we were anxious, we took a tablet, then we felt calm and slept. The last time we were feeling bored, we opened a channel and then watched pornography and felt entertained, because the brain has learned that this is what worked the last time. The brain is created for efficiency and effectiveness. So what happens? The individual begins to fantasize, okay, if I use it, I'll feel better. If I call up and we have this, then we'll feel better. And then they get to step 5, they begin to make plans. Think about it, prepare about it. That's the point at which you now call the individual, at which you call the dealer, at which you call the bike man, at which you begin to get the papers together, wrap the blunt, at which you go looking for the shisha and a number of things. You are at the planning phase. At this point, the individual is not used. Then you now get to the use phase, at which point you act on the behavior or use the substance. What happens afterwards? What happens afterwards is not necessarily bad. You feel good. At least there's temporary relief. The anxiety goes, now you can sleep. The boredom goes, now you feel excited, you feel entertained. The lack of motivation goes, now you feel motivated to go to the gym. So the distress fades, but it's only for a short time. Why? Because whatever precipitated the initial emotional discomfort is life that is precipitating some unresolved psychological pain. For as long as you have those unresolved psychological pain, life will continue to trigger. So while there is temporary relief, it is at best for a short time. After which guilt and shame sets in. There's regret, there's shame, there is talking self down, saying, why did I engage? I will never be able to quit. I am better than this, and so many other negative self-talk that will continue to now perpetuate more emotional pain. Shame and pain would only create more distress. If anything, compassion. And from that place of compassion, you say you want to treat yourself right. Treating yourself right is to take the wound for exploration, is to deal with the psychological pain, not escaping it. So the addiction cycle will feed on itself. It's a self-perpetuating cycle for as long as there's unresolved psychological pain that life can trigger. Being here on earth alone means that you're going to brush up and bump against a number of curveballs. But if you don't have a lot of psychological baggage, or you have dealt with your psychological baggage and you built healthy coping tools to the ups and downs and the unplanned circumstances of life, you will not be in an addiction cycle. So when we change our response at any time, any point, we can break the cycle. And my own recommendation is always heal the pain. And while you're on the pathway of healing the pain, begin to intercept any of the cycle. You're listening to me now. A way to intercept step 5 is to flush out every substance that you have. So if you have a stash of weed, colos at home, go flush it down the toilet. You have a stash of alcohol and spirits at home, go flush it down the toilet. Don't sell it to someone. Don't gift it to someone. You have wrapping papers for the weed, go flush it down the toilet. You have the shisha at home, go break it. Yes, regardless of how much you spent on it. How much you spent on it, I tell you, is infinitesimal to what addiction will cost you on a longer run. And then if I want to break the trigger cycle, life will continue to trigger. But trigger would only be painful if I harbor psychological pain. I tell you what I mean. Picture that wound again. Someone has a wound that has refused, and they have refused to get it checked. Everybody who bumps on them will leave them screaming. They will just be screaming ouch through life. So they will be triggered by almost everything in life. So what's the real deal to do? Take care of the psychological pain, take care of the wound, so that somebody can bump into you and you're not screaming ouch. Life can throw you a curveball and you deal with it. You know that common saying that when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. Is a resource we all need to have at our fingertips, because life will give us many lemons. Why is addiction so difficult to stop? You know, I said earlier, addiction is not just the behavior. The essence of this awareness is, you understand, this is more than me wanting to just perpetuate a cycle and mess up my life. It's because addiction would impact your life on many levels. Would affect the brain, would affect relationships, ability to cope with challenges, would affect your emotions. And the most foundational one is that it literally alters the brain wiring and brain chemicals. But the way you heal your brain is by changing your actions, your emotions, your thought patterns, and building coping mechanisms. That's how we heal the brain. The brain was altered by the addictive behavior. The brain would also be healed by the recovery behavior. Addiction will change how the brain works. The reward pathway, like I told you, that the reward pathway is responsible for perpetuation of any activity or any behavior, because our brain is trained to reward activities that we regard as positive. If somebody has, over time, by virtue of upbringing and their own personal decision, come to regard generosity as a positive behavior, the brain will release dopamine every time they extend and demonstrate acts of kindness and generosity. Now, somebody who grew up stingy or who was raised in a very stingy environment, they feel internal unrest if they have to demonstrate or extend any act of kindness. What happened? Their reward pathway has not come to recognize generosity and kindness as a rewarding behavior. The same way, if you have used the behavior of done an act repeatedly over time, so much so that your brain has come to interpret it as a rewarding behavior, every time you do it, alarm bells goes off in your brain. We are doing something rewarding. We are doing something rewarding. Release dopamine, release endocannabinoid, release all of the positive feel-good hormones. So if you are going to change that pathway, you would also intentionally, diligently, faithfully build a new pathway for positives. Pathway, just picture pathway. You don't walk on a footpath once and it becomes a pathway. It must be well worn. You trek on it severally. That's why Paul said that those who by reason of use have their senses exercised So you will do the activity again, 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 again. So by reason of use, you have that sense exercised, and then you'll be able to build new pathways. So it alters the brain, the reward, motivation. Ultimately, eventually, the addictive behavior begins to be the one that motivates you. So you have to intentionally build other lifestyle and activities as the ones that motivate you. It ultimately alters decision making. So many times people decide for the behavior or substance of addiction at the detriment of a saner decision. Why? Because the brain has been altered and then messes up self-control. If the person tells you, I will not do it, promises their dad, they won't do it, their mom, they won't do it, their dog, they won't do it, their cats, they won't do it. And the second day they are doing it, what happened? Self-control is lost. So that's what has happened in the brain. That's why I say it's more than bad behavior. The individual's mind, brain, neural pathways, neurochemicals are working against them because that's how they trained the brain by reason of use over time. Another thing is that emotional regulation is disrupted. Addictive behaviors will disrupt how we manage emotions. Emotions are normal constructs in life. The same way you have hunger pangs, you have a need to pee, you have a need to poo. And emotions will come and go. Emotions don't last forever. But an addictive lifestyle alters our ability to experience, process, and rationally utilize emotions. So the person feels angry and feels the anger is going to last forever. The anger is blown out of proportion and they feel they cannot continue in this state. I need to check out of it. Why? Because there's a narrative that the anger will not come to an end. Most anger, give it a few hours, it dissipates and you're good. And you can even grow yourself to be able to change your emotions. That's possible. Those are called positive coping skills. So addiction would lead to intense highs and lows with profound periods of anxiety, shame, and guilt. Then addiction would also alter stress response. Stress is a normal part of life. But it should be that we have a stress, we overcome, we recover. But in persons who struggle with addiction, the body begins to expect that the behavior or the substance is the only way we can cope with the stress, rather than natural coping mechanisms that is available to us all. Somebody is in need of money, or someone has an upcoming exam. You know, that's a stress. What's the way we face an upcoming exam naturally? We read books, we ask people to discuss with us, or we call somebody and say we have an upcoming exam and I'm really a bit anxious about it. Those are natural coping mechanisms. Someone who has built a conditioned response in the brain, that is substance or behavior that we use to cope, you likely find that person smoking a puff before the exam, and you ask them why. They say they are trying to calm down their nerves. The same thing someone else will pray about. The same thing somebody else will read more so that they can feel adequately confident and prepared for the exam. You see what has happened? Stress response has been altered. And of course, addiction will alter relationships. Because the fact that such an individual struggles with self-control decision makings, many times they don't make decisions that are in their best or in the best of relationships. They will many times prioritize the use, the behavior over relationships. So it will strain trust, strain communication, and strain connection. Because if it's saying you that they are scolding all the time, begging all the time, appealing, and then we still find you using the substance or the behavior. Your relations are also humans. So all of them may also start getting tired. And if relationships are broken, isolation increases. Addiction thrives in isolation. Please get me right. You may have relationships, but maybe relationship of fellow users, using bodies. What is the gel that is holding you people together is the substance or the behavior of use. If you don't have relationships with sober people who are close-knit, who are willing to support you, you are isolated. Because these people you use with, you're not emotionally connected with them. Take away the drugs at your lowest of lows, you would likely not call them. Then addiction would also alter our coping mechanisms because it literally replaces healthy coping mechanisms with unhealthy habits. Like I said, people would have prayed, journaled, called somebody to talk with, studied some more, tried to see how they can get some more business to be able to make ends meet, and a number of other things that we just do to overcome difficult situations. These are just healthy coping mechanisms. You have a challenge, you face it, and tell yourself, how do I get out of it? But over time, substances and behaviors of addiction are the unhealthy habits that has replaced healthy coping mechanisms. So it makes it difficult for such individuals to handle life and face life without the addiction or the substance or behavior. Now, we have said, why is addiction difficult? Why is it possible? Why is recovery possible? Just the same way as I've told you, addiction is difficult to quit, it is also very, very possible to recover. The truth is, nothing good, nothing worthwhile comes easy. So I want you to have that settled for a fact and tell yourself, come what may, I'm coming out of this cycle. Recovery is not just about stopping the behavior. If you stop the behavior and you don't replace it with healthy behavior, it's only a matter of time before you relapse or switch addiction. And many times it will be worse than before. Your aim, your goal for recovery is that you want to build a healthier, better, and more meaningful lifestyle. You want to develop healthy coping mechanisms. You want to have routines that will rewire your brain. You want to get on the recovery pathway. The best concept, in my own opinion, that God wired into the human gene is a concept called neuroplasticity. It means the brain is able to bounce back and recover fully if the initial insult was removed. The insult in this case is the addiction. Your brain's ability to bounce back is when you now set it on the recovery pathway with targeted, well-stewarded, well-curated activities and disciplines, routines and protocols. The brain is resilient with time and right support. It can rewire itself. So you're building healthy coping mechanism, you're journaling, you're going for therapy, you're meditating, you're sleeping well, you're mindful of your circle of influence, you're praying, you're studying the scriptures, you're dealing with your trauma, you're dealing with the psychological baggage you've had for years. You are holding yourself accountable. You have people within your circle who know you're on the recovery journey and are willing to support you. By the time you bring all of this on board and you're consistent with them day after day, give it time. You look back and not be able to find the addiction. You look back and not be able to find the craving. So the aim is you want to choose differently. What you chose while the addiction was being perpetuated, you want to choose the very opposite of that. You choose your healing over the addiction. Choose finding someone to talk to than escape with the addictive behavior. Choose journaling rather than smoking a puff. Choose meditation rather than opening the pornography channel. Small steps consistently will lead to big changes over time. Then, of course, you want to support yourself with a recovery community, which is what this our own community does as an addiction recovery community. You want to seek support from others. So that could be therapists, that could be mental health counselor, that could be your clergyman if he knows what to do, or your clergywoman. Recovery communities like addiction recovery groups. And then have that faith that a new life is possible and available on the other side. And go with God unapologetically, no cap about that. You need God. As humans, we are spiritual human beings, spiritual beings having a physical experience. So you have to get God on your game. So I want you to also remember that your past does not define you. From this moment that you're hearing me, regardless of what you've done or what you struggle with, it doesn't define you. The life you make here on forwards is what defines you. One of my very favorite quotes of all time is that regardless of your past, your future is still spotless, absolutely spotless. Nothing has been written on it. So you can make a choice to decide what you want to write on it. And your future can be full of hope. So what are the principles that guide recovery? The same way addiction is a journey, is a slow fade. Recovery is also a journey. In fact, recovery is a lifelong journey. We're all getting better. The moment that we say we're not getting better, we are all done. Law of diminishing returns sets in. So even me, your therapist who is teaching you this, I'm also on a journey to being better. While it will not be addiction recovery, but I'm on a journey to being a better version of myself than I was tomorrow. But it begins with honesty, acknowledging that, yes, I have something to heal from. I have something I need to get out of. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with at least one person. At least one person who knows, yes, I struggle with this. Now I'm trying to find a therapy group. I'm trying to find a therapist. I'm reading books and I'm watching movies and YouTube videos on recovery journey. Honesty is the foundation of real change. You can't lie to yourself. Even if you lie to every other person, you must, having listened to that checklist, if you find that you score more than one, something is off. Second one is willingness. You must be willing to change and do the work required for recovery. Recovery is not easy, but it's better you do that work because addiction will cost you more than whatever price you ever have to pay for recovery. Then seek support, lean on others. Please find an accountability partner as we begin this journey. That could be your dad, that could be your mom, that could be your spouse, who you will call, I struggle with porn addiction, or I struggle with marijuana addiction, or I struggle with gas addiction, whatever it is. And I joined this group, and then I have this therapist. Could you walk this journey with me? Can I call you once a while? Could you call me and ask me every week? And I tell you how it went. I was sober this week. I did not engage in anything. Or I engaged because I had a crappy week. But you'll be honest with them and be honest with yourself. Then it also involves embracing learning, self-discovery, and personal development. On this, our recovery journey, you will read books. You will watch YouTube videos. It's not that someone is telling you this is what you should do. The healing has to be stewarded from inside. One thing I usually tell my client is everything you need to heal is on the inside of you. Books may just activate it. Therapy sessions will just activate it. The more of the activation resources you can get, the better for you. So bibliotherapy is a way that you reading as a kind of therapy. So you read, you ask questions, you have a open heart. Your recovery would also include boundaries, setting healthy boundaries, knowing those that you cannot call and those that can't call you, places you cannot visit, those that you will put on blocking mode. An example of someone who has to go on blocking mode is your dealer. No cap, no story. The sex consult you used to call needs to go on blocking mode and the number deleted so you can't trace it. So now on the day you have a trigger, it increases the difficulty of looking for a means of escape. Then self-care, take care of your mind, your body, your spirit. You will sleep. Target 7 to 9 hours if you're planning to quit addictions. You need a rested body for your brain to heal. You will eat healthy meals, no junks, not coke, no burger, no meat pie, home cooked meals. And you will pray, no stories. You will study scriptures. Man is tripartite, body, soul, and spirit. We can't heal the body and leave the spirit. We can't heal the soul and leave the spirit. And then we will trust God. Because one thing you must bring to fore, regardless of how bad your addiction is, whether you're 50, you're 60, you are 80, maybe you are 40 and you're not married, and you have an adverse childhood experience score of 10 out of 10. Life has really dealt you a lot of blows, I agree. But one thing you cannot lose in faith is faith in the possibility of having a better tomorrow. So you have to believe that it's possible. It's there for you as it is for every other person. Because this faith will allow you to trust in God's plan. It is the same faith that gives you hope. Because once we lose hope, we don't want to try. But once you have hope, all of a sudden strength comes. And you say, bring it on, I can do it. And then patience, patience. Recovery takes time. I'm always in the group of progress over perfection. So there's a day where your mood is all over the place. It's not the end of the world. Be patient with yourself. Trust the process, even when it seems like you're still having anxiety, you're still palpitating, you're still having panic attacks, your skin is on goosebumps, and you're still having some vivid sexual dreams. Patience, faith, and patience that it will come to an end and you'll be good. Then perseverance, you have to keep going even when it's hard. Even when you have a relapse, you pick yourself up again and again. If you lapse 20 times, pick yourself up again. Every step forward counts. At the end of the day, when we discuss the later side of this course, you come to realize that even a relapse is an opportunity to learn your psychological landscape. What happened? Why did you have a relapse? What were you thinking? What were you not doing? So now these principles are not rules. They are tools. They are tools that anybody who wants to steward a life of significance beyond addiction recovery want to keep at their fingertips daily, because it leads to a life of freedom and purpose. So now if you're watching this, if you're not watching this as someone who is enrolled in the recovery program, maybe you're watching this on any of the media platforms, the truth is addiction recovery is not a solitary journey. While addiction may have developed within the context of isolation, recovery must happen within the context of support and connection. Yes, that's the word. Disconnection is what breeds addiction. Emotional isolation, feeling nobody will understand you, nobody can help you. You're the only one in this situation. Nobody has it as bad as you. Connection lets you know that everybody feels crappy some days, and some things will happen, and it's not the end of the world. And not everybody has it figured out in entirety, and everybody's on a healing journey, and people are there and willing to help you, and not everybody is bad. So what are some things you can do if you are on this journey, or this video is motivating you to get on this journey? Reach out. You can reach out to us. You can talk to a trusted friend, a family member, a mental health professional. You can get support by joining support groups, mental health therapists, as many as are available to you wherever you're watching me from. Then if you're a person of faith, and I want to hope and pray that you're a person of faith, regardless of your religion, man is tripartite, body, soul, and spirit. You want to stay connected to scriptures, to prayer, to worship. It strengthens your spirit, man. That's where life flows from. That's where energy flows from. And then you want to take small steps. Focus one day at a time. Just tell yourself, one day at a time. If I can get through today only. Don't think of the next 100 days. Just one day at a time. And then you must have a firm, audacious, unshakable belief in your next chapter. And the next chapter begins here and now. Thank you for being with me.